Good day, good people, and welcome to Contemplative Inner Being live on the Mighty Network. I am Brother Robert Farrell, and whether you are here for the live session or watching the recording, thank you for being part of this small community. If you will, let me know that you can hear me okay and the lighting and video is working well. Tonight our topic is breathing underwater. This is part one of two parts. We will get into part two next week. This breathing underwater is a metaphor for learning to live, survive, and even grow in situations that feel overwhelming, disorienting, or being beyond our control. It's really trying to describe the spiritual capacity to stay present and grounded in the midst of suffering, powerlessness, emotional depth, that kind that would normally cause panic, avoidance, or collapse. And we will be referring to the 12 steps, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that being overwhelmed by addiction of drugs or alcohol. Before we begin our reflection, let us practice as we are committed to. If you'd like to take just a moment to close your eyes if that's comfortable, be present to where you are sitting now. Be mindful of your breathing. Just notice your natural rhythm of in and out. Feel inside your body. Let whatever is be what it is. With each exhale, you can let go. You can let go of the busyness of the day. You can let go of the worries of the week to come. You can let go of the need to have to figure anything out. All God ever asks of us is to be present. So let us practice that in the silence together. Take another breath. Become aware of the gift that it is, always available, always there on time, exactly what you need in the moment. And as so is the divine. Friends, I wanted to let you know that during the reflection time, you can use the chat. Actually, we encourage the use of the chat. You can put anything in there at all, whether you want to share something that's coming up for you, you want to reflect on something you heard, maybe you want to take a note there and share it with the rest of us on what's noteworthy for you, or you might have a question. But please feel free. Even though I'm reflecting, I enjoy the interaction. I want you to interact with each other as much as you feel comfortable. You know, friends, we wake most days inside a fog we don't even know we are in. A film stretches over the eyes of the soul, translucent but thick enough to distort the way we see the world, others, and ourselves. It hums quietly beneath the surface of our lives. We call it stress, personality, habit. But if we listen with the ears of the heart, if we dare to press our face against the glass of our illusions, we will find it has another name: addiction. Not only to substances, but to patterns, to certainties, to the rhythms we have always known, even when they do us harm. Like vines twisted tightly around a tree's trunk, our addictions and attachments grow with us, nearly indistinguishable from our identity. They are soft, persuasive voices that say, "This is who you are. This is how life works." Stay close to the familiar, no matter how narrow. We clutch them not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of the silence of the other side, of not knowing what might emerge if we truly let go. But what if addiction is less a flaw and more a shared human ache? What if we are not just individuals with private compulsions, but a species born in systems that nurture codependence and reward spiritual sleepwalking? Our cravings for control, for approval, for escape, these are not simply personal failures. They are communal ones. We build societies that mirror our inner fragmentation. We gather around idols of productivity, image, and certainty. We normalize self-protection. We spiritualize fear. To speak honestly about this is not to fall into despair, but to step into light. Not the harsh fluorescent glare of moralism, but the kind of light that filters through the canopy of an old forest, soft, persistent, and healing. A light that reveals gently. And this is the work of Jesus. This is the genius of the 12 steps. Both teach that real transformation begins when we admit our helplessness, not as defeat, but as a doorway. There is a very peculiar grace in naming our powerlessness. Now, it's not passive resignation. Instead, it's active surrender, the kind that cracks us open to something larger. Yeah, the seed must fall, the branch must be pruned, the ego, which has wrapped itself in sophistication and pride, must learn to sit quietly in the dirt. That kind of surrender is nothing less than resurrection, but it does not happen overnight. That quote, came to believe. Came to believe is not a thunderclap. It is a slow thaw. A soul learning to walk barefoot again. And this path, the shared journey of those waking from addiction, sin, or illusion, well, it is not linear. It winds, it falters. We crawl more often than we fly. But somewhere in the distance, something always calls us forward. Not a distant deity, but an intimate presence. A love that cannot be earned and yet is always offered. This love does not force its way in. It waits for the cracks. And the cracks blessedly come when we can no longer keep up the performance. And that's why step 1 of the 12 steps is the hardest. Admitting powerlessness in a world that celebrates autonomy. And that feels like betrayal. But it is only in laying down our brittle attempts to manage life that we discover something more radical. Life is not meant to be managed. It is meant to be received. Life asks for trust, not strategy. And trust begins with empty hands. Father Richard Rohr often reminds us that both Jesus and Paul spoke not to the body's desires, as so many have assumed, but to the small self's obsession with control. That voice inside, the critic, the planner, the cynic, that voice fears anything it cannot dominate. But the soul is not afraid of being small. The soul does not need to be right. The soul only needs to be real. And it speaks in longings, not conclusions. We become real through loss, through undoing, through the messy and often embarrassing experiences that leave us weeping and undone. And yet, those are the places where presence comes close, where God bends low. And in these moments we realize the vine we thought would kill us was the one that held us fast until we could bear fruit. Friends, contemplative practice is not a technique for escape. It is a returning to what is already here. It is the daily act of allowing ourselves to be unmade by mystery. So prayer, true prayer, is a fall into presence, into union, into the wide, humming stillness where our head, heart, and body can finally listen together. But our inner world is not so easily unified. The head clings to opinions, the heart hoards its wounds, the body stores memories like sediment. So we must learn to empty and fill simultaneously. Empty our compulsions and fill with compassion. Empty our need to fix and fill with the willingness to feel. This is no weekend retreat. It is life's long apprenticeship in humility. And there is very deep wisdom in the 12 steps' insistence on embodiment. The mind can lie, the body cannot. The body remembers every grief, every shame, and the body, blessed instrument, often points the way back to wholeness if we are willing to feel its signals. Friends, I think this is why Jesus touched the bodies of those he healed. Because touch bypasses pretense. Friends, healing begins not in thinking differently, but in feeling truly. And when our three centers, mind, heart, and body, begin to harmonize, we find ourselves no longer resisting reality, but resting in it. This is the space where we discover that sanity is not certainty. Sanity is surrender. That peace is not a reward for perfection. That peace is the fruit of presence. And presence is the only place where we meet God, not in the abstract, but in the ache, the breath, the moment before the next. So friends, the journey to sanity, to restoration, to love, does not ask for perfection. It only asks for participation. That we keep showing up. That we keep falling and rising as truthfully as we can. That we let go again and again, even when we don't know what's on the other side. Especially then. We suffer to get well. We surrender to win. We die to live. We give it away to keep it. And each of those phrases is a koan, a riddle unraveled only by living. And only those who have been broken open can hear their truth. Have you been broken open? So friends, this is why the first step will always be the threshold. And this is why powerlessness is the beginning of all true power. Because power, in the spiritual sense, is not the ability to control. It is the courage to receive. It's not the strength to dominate. It is the softness to be changed. And in this great reversal, we find the thing we feared the most, letting go. And that letting go was in fact the very thing that would set us free. And this is what we practice each time we go into silence. Let me take a moment to give a very succinct recap. Give you an opportunity to enter anything into the chat, and then we will enter into that silence again. I believe what we are reflecting on is that healing begins where we least expect it, and that is when we admit we can't do it. Now, as I was saying, addiction is not just about substance, right? It's also to our patterns, addiction to our illusions, addictions to our sense of control. That just seems to be part of the human condition. But if we really want transformation, that requires a surrender that softens the ego, something that really opens our innermost selves and allows grace to do its work. So with honest vulnerability and contemplative presence, we can allow head, heart, and body to align and listen to the sacred moment. I do think that when Jesus said, to love God with all your heart, mind, and body, he was pointing to this, is that he wanted you to love God with your whole self, this sacred alignment that we're talking about. And I believe that the deep truth here is that the more we admit we cannot manage life on our own, then we become more open to the deep, liberating flow of divine presence that's always there. So let us join together to go into that flow of divine presence in the silence. Take a gentle breath. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you. And we will practice together. Our breath is a good reminder of that constant letting go of our need for control and our receiving of compassion. Friends, there comes a moment, it's often quiet, it's rarely convenient, when we are invited to release our grip. Not because we have calculated the advantages of surrender, but because holding on has become unbearable. The soul, like a clenched fist, grows tired. and what once felt like control begins to ache. Now, this is the trembling edge of step 3, a place where the will, worn and blistered, meets the possibility of a new rhythm. We do not arrive here triumphant. We stumble, crack open, and sometimes get dragged. Surrender is a strange word. It tastes like defeat to the ego, and yet to the spirit it is a returning. Like standing in a river after years of trying to carry it. We are soaked before we know it, still struggling perhaps to keep our head above water, but something in us has begun to listen to the current instead of resisting it. If only we are willing. Now, this is not passive. It is active receptivity, a conscious letting go into something wiser and wider than the self we have spent so long trying to polish. God, as we understand God, or perhaps simply love, with all its unreasonable demands, steps in where our control steps aside. Father Richard Rohr tells us that this act of giving over our will, our lives, is not a one-time dramatic performance. It's a deep, quiet conversion that grows roots over time. He says that acceptance becomes the most unexpected kind of strength. Not the fiery kind that blazes with righteousness, but the earthy strength that rises from soil long tilled by surrender. It is not about resignation. It is not about giving up. It is about giving to. Giving to the moment, to the grief, to the beauty, to the mess of it all. And this giving softens us, not into fragility, it softens us into integrity. We often learn surrender the hard way, through heartbreak, illness, loss, or the whispered edge of exhaustion. It is rarely our idea. Most of us must be brought to our knees before we consider releasing our white-knuckled plans. The author and Lutheran pastor Nadia Bolz-Weber tells the story of sobriety. And she tells it true. Surrender felt like theft, like something being ripped from her that she believed she needed to survive. And yet, in that helpless rage, she was plucked from the edge by a love that didn't flinch at her fury. She was carried, kicking, into a new beginning. It was not clean or pretty. It was real and holy. Friends, this is where true transformation begins, not in our well thought out choices, but in the collapse of our old strategies. Jesus did not invite people to improvement, but to death. A dying to self, a letting go of the illusion of mastery. He said, renounce yourself. The cost of the journey is everything we think we know about ourselves. The reward is who we truly are. Beloved, free, and newly alive. But stepping into this new path Well, it requires courage. The kind that looks not like bravado, but like trembling honesty. So we move to the next stage of the journey, facing ourselves in the mirror, not polished by vanity, but fogged by truth. So this moral inventory, it's not a checklist of sins. It is a lantern held into our hidden places. It is not a search for how bad we are, but for how real we are willing to become. And this is what we now know as shadow work. And it stings. Or as Kid President would say, and it hurts, man. We meet the parts of ourselves we have exiled, the snarling inner critic, the wound that never quite healed, the secret jealousy, the fear we cover with sarcasm. We meet the aching places that never received compassion. Some people run to addiction not for escape, but to silence this unbearable internal clamor. But friends, numbing does not free us. It buries us deeper. To name our shadow is not to condemn it, but to make space for its healing. And my beloved teacher, Father Rohr, reminds us that the purpose is not moral perfection. The purpose is luminous awareness. Shadow boxing becomes sacred when we understand it not as a self-punishment, but as a path to mercy. And we wrestle not to win, but to understand. And understanding transforms everything. This fearless self-confrontation doesn't end in self-loathing. It softens the gaze. Once we have looked honestly into our own fractured mirror, we begin to see others with gentler eyes. We stop needing to correct everyone else's specks before we are finally tending to our own logs. This kind of clarity is not about gaining the upper hand. It is about stepping into mutual humanity. And in this place of exposed truth, we are called to speak it aloud. Now, step 5 takes us from solitary reflection into the intimacy of shared vulnerability. To say out loud the exact nature of our wrongs to another human being or to the divine, it really is a radical act of communion. Not just with the other person, but with those deep parts of ourselves. There is something alchemical in being witnessed. The shame, once spoken, begins to dissolve. Early Christians knew this, gathering not just to praise, but to confess. The practice wasn't about humiliation. The practice was about healing. To admit, to uncover and offer, to admit our deepest truth is to be met with the only thing that can truly change us: love without conditions. You see, accountability is not punishment. It is belonging restored. The author Adrienne Maree Brown, her words breathe a modern echo of this ancient wisdom. She names a new way of being with one another, a way that makes space for mistakes without casting people away. We are not here to cancel each other. We are here to unlearn, to mend, to grow alongside each other's shadows. There is no moral high ground, only sacred earth underfoot, where we kneel beside one another, equal in need and equal in possibility. And my friends, this is not soft spirituality. It is radical and hard-earned. It is the work of truth, of surrender, of humility. It is the way of liberation through descent, not the way of liberation through ascent. It asks us to descend into our own depths, to listen, to admit, and to begin again. In this unfolding journey, we are not alone. The wisdom of those who have gone before us, those who wrote sacred texts, those who shared their messes in church basements, those who wept in quiet corners, they walk beside us still. Their voices are not gone. They echo through every honest prayer, every whispered confession, every moment we dare to say, "Here I am, still becoming, still beloved." And so, friends, we turn. Again and again we turn. Not perfectly, but faithfully. Before I recap this section, let us go into that place, into maybe the messy church basement inside ourselves, or into the quiet corners where we weep, or into the sacred text written inside of us. Take a breath. Be present to the presence as we practice together. Friends, the path of spiritual transformation begins, well, it's not with triumph. It really is surrender, that relinquishing of control into a greater wisdom. And this surrender is not passive. It's a dynamic offering of self to the truth of the moment. When we can move into acceptance is when we enter into really a hidden strength. So we have to begin to face ourselves honestly, whether it's a moral inventory or shadow work. And when we do that, we move beyond denial into a luminous awareness, and a luminous awareness of our shared humanity. So this kind of honesty initiates a deep healing rooted in love. We're really talking about a spiritual awakening that comes from humility and courage and communion with others and the divine. There is a hidden grace in our imperfections, and there is a sacredness in connections. Ida is sharing a first sentence of a Pray It Forward card from Unity. The presence of God within me is my peace. Thank you, Ida. Friends, I want to remind you of each weekday, actually beginning today at 11:15 Central each day, there is a post on the Mighty Network that accompanies what we have talked about tonight. And it's an opportunity to stay connected with this material throughout the week. I hope that you will engage that material in conversation with each other or just sharing your own reflections and comments. There's plenty of space there for you to participate as well. I also want to let you know that there are several courses on the Mighty Network. They're very simple, and there's only a couple of them that I would call what would I call them? I don't know what I would call them. Sorry, but they're there for you. They're self-paced, so you can just go from one lesson to the next as needed. Most of the courses have an opportunity for reflective questions or journaling prompts, so you have time to do that. And that's one of the reasons that we moved to the Mighty Network a year ago, was to give you an opportunity to engage in some of our course material, whether it's an introduction to interspirituality, the Beatitudes, what is contemplation. Let's see what else is there. There's discovering Christianity. There's a course on solidarity. There's a course on the practice of Lectio Divina, and many others. So take a look if you feel so inclined. You might find something that is calling to you. Friends, may you feel the quiet mercy that meets you when control slips through your fingers. And may that surrender, however clumsy, be received as holy. And may the cracked places within you become those thresholds for presence, where the illusion of mastery dissolves into the grace of simply being. And may you walk this path not in perfection, but in participation, trembling, honest, and held. I hope to see you again soon. Have a wonderful evening. Blessings to all. Good night.